Okay, so today we are going to be talking about purchasing an inexpensive guitar online. It also has a little bit of a grunge theme going on. Fitting mug, I've got my plaid on, I've got my tatty Converse on, my Seattle-based coffee. Let's take a little trip into the 90s and let's take a little trip into what happened when I bought an inexpensive guitar online for the first time. So I decided I would buy a guitar online. Not something I've done before, and I thought I would buy something that was budget friendly and inexpensive, obviously, and from one of the big retailers. So I decided to get a guitar from Anderton's online. It was £109, bargain, and it's this guitar here. So I went and bought one of these. It's the Fender Squier Mustang Bullet. It's the HH model, I believe, because it has the two humbuckers. And here it is, pretty guitar. It's got a 24-inch scale neck, so it's really nice for people with small hands like myself. And it's inexpensive, you know, £109. So I thought I would talk about my experiences with this guitar. How it was out of the box, and subsequently what happened after that. So what I thought I would do is I will play the guitar, I will give you some sound samples, I will talk about the pros and cons, basically, of the guitar. So let's get started. So the first thing I want to talk about is the guitar out of the box. Now I'm going to be honest about this, because I think being honest is going to be the best thing with this. And I've got to say, I was met with some excitement, because I've always quite fancied a Mustang, but also some disappointment. But it wasn't disappointment in the way that the guitar looked, that's for sure, because I think it looks great. I mean, that finish is really nice. It's kind of I don't know if it will come across in the video, but it's a metallic blue. It's not a rosewood neck, I think it's Power Ferro, I think that's how you pronounce it. It's a rosewood alternative, because there was issues with transportation of rosewood for a while, I believe. So that's what the neck is. Yeah, it's great, you know, but it's great because I had to make some changes. Pulled it out of the box, and one of the first things that I noticed was there was bits of, well, it was covered in sawdust. There was some finishing that hadn't been quite finished around here. There was bits of wood sticking out. It hadn't been quite properly sanded. The neck here was great. The condition of the front of the neck was very, very dry. The nut was really wonky. Plastic and not very nice. And the saddles were a problem. Not so much because they didn't do the job they're supposed to do, holding the strings in position and the intonation, but the fact that the little saddle screws were poorly made, cheap, to be honest. And hey, I know you're going to say £109, what do you expect? And you'd be right. But it wasn't playable out of the box. The frets were incredibly dirty. Like I said, the fretboard was dry as a bone. The frets were not only dirty, but they hadn't been finished. They hadn't been polished. They hadn't been touched, it seems, apart from being put in and levelled. I mean, the levelling's pretty much there, as much as you could expect for a new guitarist. We'll probably do with a proper fret level at some point. But, you know, as it is now, it's playable and sounds all right and feels good. But I had to replace the nut. I replaced the string trees, because the metal ones that were on there weren't very good at all. And I had to replace the saddles. I'll probably include clips in this video actually of me doing the work on the guitar. That would probably be good for you. The work I was doing was basically things that I felt needed to be done to make the guitar playable and usable. So I am by no means a luthier or a guitar tech, but I do know enough that I've maintained my own guitars over the years. Now, this is part of the process and journey of buying this affordable cheap guitar online. I've done a fair few things, to be honest. The saddles that came with it were terrible, so they've come out. I'm replacing those. I'm just going to film those, so they're going on. They're like a Wilkinson Tremolo. They're like a Wilkinson saddle. I've had to replace the string trees. I replaced the nut. The frets were dirty, scratchy, horrible. They all needed polishing. I bought this so I can travel with it because it's small and keep practicing and stuff. But I like it. But I just think Squier could have... The QC on this was pretty poor. I had sawdust and bits hanging and some sort of flecking of bits of wood on there. It wasn't finished properly. The truss rod was completely loose. It hadn't been tightened up at all. So how it got through QC, I do not know. The intonation was out. Like I say, the bolts don't fit the saddles particularly well. They were rattling whenever you tried to play. So, you know, for 109 quid, yes, budget, great. The neck's really nice, feels really nice, it's solid, the body's solid. The electronics I had a look at and they're absolutely fine, nothing wrong with those, that sound great. But I did speak to Anderton's, where I bought this from, and they were brilliant. They really handled it well, and they were very apologetic. But, you know, I've had other Squiers. I've got a Squier Jazzmaster, I've got a Squier Strat that I've had forever. Yes, you know, upgrades have happened along the way, and I've been, you know, it's got shader tuners and whatnot, and better nut and saddles and stuff. But I've had to spend extra on getting the parts, and not just extra money, it's extra time. But I'd rather do that and make it workable. My only issue, I guess, would be if I was a beginner and I didn't know what I was doing, I'd have quite a shonky guitar to try and deal with, and it could put me off. You know, bending the strings was horrible. It was scratching, and these were dull. I think they could probably do with another quick polish, to be honest. I'm lucky. I know what I'm doing. I can fix the issues here with it. A beginner probably wouldn't. So for me, you know, and if this is an affordable guitar, and let's make no bones about it, it's aimed at a beginner market. Could be better. I still think this is good value for money because of the quality of the electronics, the body and the neck. But the fit and finish at the end was terrible. And that's a factory thing. It's not Anderton's fault that, you know, it's the fact that it came out of the factory in a box. It doesn't really do the job that it should straight out of the box, which is a shame. So, yeah, this is where I'm at. I'm putting the saddles on, and we'll see how we go from there. Okay, so let's talk about my thoughts when I first got the guitar out of the box. Now, I think the first thing that hit me, obviously, was, as has already been discussed, was the condition of the guitar. If I was to list all the things that I've already mentioned, the frets in the neck, the saddles where the grub screws weren't fitting properly into the saddles and would be loose and vibrate. The nut was glued in badly and not cut correctly. I've already mentioned the string trees. The truss rod wasn't tightened. Important, I think, the truss rod. So, as you can imagine, a fair amount of work. But if I was a beginner, would I know those things? Would I know that they were wrong? Probably not. I would probably just try and battle on with it in the state it was in. Now, a disclaimer here is that I don't blame Andertons for this. It's clearly been a factory quality control issue in Indonesia at the factory that make these Squiers. So naughty Squier. And I think, you know, I've seen other reviews online of this guitar and they've been all pretty good, to be honest. But I do think that this one maybe has slipped the net somewhat on the quality control things. To not have a truss rod done up, it's bizarre. Now, with that in mind, having not experienced buying a guitar online before, is that what I should have expected from buying a guitar online, even if it was an affordable one? I don't know, because I have nothing to judge that against. But for my first experience, it was disappointing. So from that point of view, I think those are all the cons. The pros are, it's a nice looking guitar. And, you know, electrically it's sound as a pound. The body and the neck are put together well, if not. It's been the fit and the finish at the end, I think, that's been the problem. After setting it up with the truss rod and the intonation and everything, it feels like a guitar I'm happy to play now. So, you know, in general, would I say buy one of these guitars to a beginner? Yes, but then immediately take it to your local luthier and get them to set it up. Or if you're buying it from the shop directly, I'm sure that it would be set up anyway. But yeah, I mean, for 109 quid and a bit extra on parts, I suppose I've probably spent about £40 extra on parts and the postage and whatnot. This is clearly the lower end of the range for Squier guitars, but now I'm happy with it. Okay, thanks for watching. Be kind to each other, and I'll check in again soon with another video. Thanks.